And welcome to the Goodwood Revival. Whilst there's plenty of activity going on around the paddock, I thought I'd take this opportunity to show you something that perhaps many people don't get an opportunity to see. This is the Drivers Club here at Goodwood, and this is where the drivers come to register and to get ready, and also to relax before and after the races. Through here, though, is the area where all the drivers and some of their guests will eat before they get ready for another action-packed day. So while they're doing that, here's your opportunity to see what else is on today's show.
We'll be looking at all the class and style of this unique gathering in the heart of West Sussex. On the circuit, the top sports racers of the 1950s battle it out. Then it's the turn of the single-seaters, F1 as it was 40 years ago. On two wheels, heroic Barry Sheen jousts with former world champion Wayne Gardner. Plus plenty more action in the sky and on the ground, with current F1 drivers stepping back in time on the challenging Goodwood track.
For those of you that watch motorsport regularly, then you'll definitely know the voice. Today, I've got an opportunity to meet the man behind the voice, Simon Taylor. And here he is, hard at work in the commentary booth here at Goodwood. Simon, if I could just interrupt you. Goodwood must hold, hello there, Goodwood must hold some terrific memories for you.
Well, it absolutely does. I mean, we've had now 5 wonderful revival meetings, but I'm so old, I can remember coming here in the 1960s and indeed in the 1950s. I came here first in short trousers, but I'm sure wearing a tie, as everybody should when they come to Goodwood, in 1956 with my dad, Easter Monday 1956, wonderful meeting. And I suppose I can date my passion for motor racing really back to coming to Goodwood as a lad.
Why do you think the spectators like it so much?
The reason really is Charles March's passion for detail. You can see historic racing all over the world with some of these cars, although he manages to get an awful lot of very good cars together in one place. What nobody else does is has a circuit which hasn't changed since the days when the cars were racing first time round. Goodwood really hasn't changed very much since the 50s and 60s, and indeed all the detail that you had, the hydrangeas growing in their pots all the way along the start-finish straight, the bunting, the girls in their pretty dresses, the men in their ties and tweeds and hats, all of that is the same, and that's really Charles making absolutely sure that everything is here in place as it should be. And you know, it's extraordinary. I find that all these people wearing ties and hats and so on, they're all so nice to each other. Everybody's behaving in the same courteous manner that people used to behave in the 1950s or 1960s. Maybe rose-coloured spectacles, but that's how it seems to me.
This is another great race, the Sussex Trophy. All of these cars are really innovations of late 50s designs. They all have names, Knobbly, Birdcage and Long Nose. But one thing they all have in common, all the drivers and the cars love to go sideways.
Well, no, it's getting a bit serious now, because I'm racing this Lister Jaguar. Each year I make one modification. I only drive it once a year, so I've been getting it quicker year by year. And last year I was in the middle of the front row and led for a bit, and then came second to Tony John in the Ferrari. So this year I've got another little tweak up my sleeve, so it might go another half a second a lap quicker, and we're going to try and beat him.
What's that tweak then?
All tyre pressures. Sterling Moss, you see, nowadays it's all aerodynamics, just put more download on it, turn your wing up a bit. In the old days it was a fine art of tuning your tyre pressures.
Dan Gurney raced it twice, and Carol Shelby raced it twice. And Dan and Carol both raced it in some of the biggest Grand Prix sports car racing in America, in North America, that attracted all the European drivers. So this challenged all the mighty European machinery.
And there's a fabulous variety in the field. We've got Peter Hardman in the DBR1 Aston Martin that won Le Mans in the late 50s, Tiffany Dell in that monster Lister Jaguar. And this year we've got Wyn Percy as well in the D-Type, which has appeared this year, which is going to be pretty hot competition. So although we all try to look after the equipment, nobody wants to finish behind anyone else.
The Sussex Trophy, 14 laps for World Championship sports racing cars that ran between 1955 and 1960. That was the heyday of Sir Sterling Moss. He won countless sports car races. Sterling, you must be seeing a lot of familiar automotive faces.
Well, Simon, I reckon I drove just about all these when they were new. They're now historic, and I know how they feel, but yeah, just about all, with the exception actually of Ferrari. I did drive Ferraris, but not the ones that were here.
Well, we've got a Ferrari on pole position. That's Tony Dron in the lovely little 2.5 litre Ferrari Dino. Wyn Percy on his left is in the 1955 Jaguar D-Type, a recreation of the car that won the tragic 1955 Le Mans. And on the outside, the Lister Chevy. And Sterling, you drove Works Jaguars, you drove Works Listers, and of course you drove Aston Martin DBR1s, and we've got Peter Hardman in the very DBR1 that Sterling won the Tourist Trophy with here at Goodwood 2 years running, and that car's back on the 3rd row. Everybody in position now. It's 14 laps. The green flag at the back says we're all clear. Wait for the Union Jack to come down. It goes up, it goes down. They're away, and a great start from Wyn Percy in the middle of the front row. Wyn Percy D-Type is the first to move and leads the field. That's car number 11 as they go down into Madgwick. And Julian Bronson in the thunderous Chevrolet-powered Costin-bodied Lister is up into 2nd place. And Murray Smith has made a wonderful start in the white Lotus 15, and he is in 3rd place ahead of Barry Williams and the Tajero. But Julian Bronson nibbling at the tail fin back end of that D-Type Jaguar as they go past the Corn Stoops down towards St Mary's, the right, then the left, and Wyn Percy finding his feet now, while Julian Bronson struggles for grip, and already Murray Smith has, on sheer horsepower, lost several places because his little 4-cylinder Climax engine isn't manned for the big 6s and the big V8s on the long straights. Big slide for Wyn Percy as he goes through lap. Barry Williams is 3rd, Stuart Graham is 4th, Tony Dron is all the way down in 5th place, then in 6th place it's Murray Smith. There's Tony Dron, last year's winner, from pole position. He didn't make a good start, but what's Julian Bronson going to do? In fact, he lets Wyn Percy take the line into Woodcote. He's not going to be able to do anything about it now. Wyn Percy has a little slide as he comes out of Woodcote. The noses of the cars dip as they come down into the chicane. Peter Hardman in the lovely Aston Martin sliding through the chicane. Over the start-finish line they go to complete their first of 14 laps. Wyn Percy in the D-Type, Julian Bronson less than a second behind in the Lister. Then it's Barry Williams in the Tajero, Stuart Graham and the other Lister Chevrolet. Tony Dron is 5th in the Ferrari, and Peter Hardman 6th. At the back of that queue now in the blue car number 2, the green car number 2, that is Peter Hardman in the DBR1 Aston Martin.
Yeah, I must tell you an interesting thing there. I was speaking to Peter Hardman, who normally drives either that or the Aston, and he was saying to me that it's worth 2 seconds. He's 2 seconds an hour quicker, he reckoned, in that little Ferrari that he is in the DBR1, and I was amazed. He said it is so delicate to drive, so nice.
Well, I'm sure he wished he was in the Ferrari today, but he's in the Aston Martin DBR1. He's in 6th place in car number 2, and Tony Dron is enjoying the Ferrari. Well, Willie Green in number 10 and Mark Gillis in number 17. Green in the D-Type, Gillis in the Maserati, running side by side there. But up comes Tiffany Dell, who is absolutely storming past Peter Hardman and has gone up now into 6th place ahead of Hardman. That's a really remarkable performance by Tiff in the ex-Écurie National Belge Lister. That's why it's yellow with green stripes rather than green with yellow stripes, as Listers usually are, because it was run by the Belgian team. And Peter Hardman, of course, only has 3 litres in the DBR1. He hasn't got the sheer horsepower of the Jaguar Sterling.
No, I must say the Aston, that Aston, having said that, the original Aston had a dreadful gearbox, but this one now has got a much nicer gearbox. But as you say, 3 litres, it's amazing to me how the power is getting through these big engine cars, because in our day, we look at the American cars, we had the power, and they'd always say litres 1. Well, it didn't work, because the European ones were much more delicate.
Well, Tony Dron is getting the bit between his teeth. He set the fastest lap on lap 4, the last lap, 1:29.142. He's going quicker than Wyn Percy. He's now got past Julian Bronson's mighty Lister Chevrolet, which is a very impressive achievement. Julian Bronson, not a man to hang around, but Tony Dron now up into second place, and I think he's going to make a race of it. There's old Yalla, the wonderful old, in fact, 3 great American specials all running together. The 2 Sadlers. Number 23 is Bill Sadler, who built the Sadlers in Canada all those years ago, built over 30 cars, and the yellow monster behind them is Old Yella. That's what it was known, that's how it was known. Built by Max Bolchowski, and in the pits, number 10 is the Willie Green Jaguar, which is having all its wheel spinners tapped tight. Meanwhile, Julian Bronson in 3rd place, being challenged by Barry Williams. They're absolutely side by side. Barry Williams, in fact, does go through. So Barry Williams in the Tajiro Jaguar, ahead now of Julian Bronson in the Chevrolet-powered Lister. They're both lapping Bill Sadler now in that lovely little Sadler Chevrolet Special. So up into 3rd place goes Barry Williams, and that's an off for Steve O'Rourke, who's on the grass, but back onto the tarmac. See it again, this is Steve O'Rourke. He locks up his front tyre, his front wheels under braking, and just understeers wide. Oh, and now Julian Bronson heavily into the bank. That's Julian Bronson off in his efforts to stay with Barry Williams. Julian Bronson hitting the bank backwards very hard. Bronson perfectly all right. He's out of the car, and I'm sure very depressed about that. He's done a lot of racing with this car and won a lot of races with it. But he just got onto the grass, understeered off, and then once the car was on the grass, it spun round, went in backwards, and the big bulbous Costin bodywork seems to have taken most of the shock. He's out the cockpit pretty much undistorted, which is pretty rare in these early cars, Sterling, because you didn't have any sort of crash protection in those days.
No, I think that says an awful lot for the car, and also for the safety barrier, because it didn't bounce back and get in the way of other cars. It was considered it was an accident. I think it was worked out much better than it might have done.
Now they're among the back markers, just lapping David Cottingham's little Ferrari and one of the Maseratis, and Wyn Percy trying to take a shortcut over the curbs to try and stay ahead of Tony Dron. We're now on the 11th of 14 laps, and Tony Dron, who won this race last year, could well find a way past. And Tony Dron now really worrying at the D-Type Jaguar. It's a more modern car, this Ferrari. They're both front-engined. The Ferrari has only 2.5 litres to the Jaguar's 3.5 litres. The Jaguar looks more aerodynamic, but the Ferrari is certainly more nimble. And Tony Dron, the tall motor racing journalist, classic car writer. Oh, and a big moment there for Wyn Percy, who nearly let the Jaguar D-Type get away from him, and that, I thought, might have given Tony Dron an opportunity. But Dron, sensible fellow, just waited for Wyn Percy to sort it out. He didn't want to get involved in Wyn Percy's accident. He's going to try and go through on the inside at Lavant. Can he get his nose alongside? They're absolutely wheel to wheel. They're almost touching. Now, whose power, whose horsepower is going to tell as they go down the Lavant straight? It's the Jaguar's power that tells. Tony Dron briefly got his nose ahead, but then once they get onto that long Lavant straight, that's when you need horsepower, and that's certainly what the Jaguar has got, and that was what put it in front. Tiffany Dell's got a problem. Tiffany Dell with his hand up. He'd come all the way up to 4th place, but Tiffany Dell's slowing now. And Peter Hardman's gone pine to 4th place, and Tony Dron's done it. Tony Dron has got ahead. Somehow he did it at Fordwater, and they were among the back markers. So Tony Dron has got past Wyn Percy, and now that he's ahead, Sterling, I don't think there's going to be anything that Wyn can do about it.
I don't think there is at all, actually, particularly with these back markers getting in the way. There's a birdcage Mazda in his way. But they are driving. I mean, he's right on the limit. Look at that. The back end comes out, oversteers, steps out, he holds it. These two guys are doing a great display, I must say.
Well, they certainly are driving on the limit. I know this race is very important for Tony Dron as they come up to lap the Farrelak, an interesting car built by Don Farrell with a Cadillac engine and Allard parts. And we're seeing it again, how Tony Dron did it. He got on the inside as they went through the long, fast right-hander, and Old Yalla has just demolished the chicane. Ernie Nagamatsu has hit the chicane in the 6.6-litre Old Yalla Buick. Wyn Percy driving his heart out, hanging out the tail of the D-Type Jaguar. But the chicane is now clear, so no yellow flags at the chicane as they come storming down to Woodcote Corner for the last time. Is there anything Wyn Percy can do? He's going to leave his braking absolutely as late as he can. He's looking down the inside, but he's not quite close enough. You can see the Jaguar moving around under braking, but Tony Dron under real pressure. Huge slide out of Woodcote from Wyn Percy. They're in the chicane now, going through the polystyrene flakes. And now they come over the start-finish line. The checkered flag is waiting. Tony Dron wins the Sussex Trophy for the second year running. A gallant chase from Wyn Percy, who finishes second in the D-Type. And into third place will be Barry Williams, who's going across the chicane curve now in the Tajiro. Barry Williams finishes a comparatively lonely third.
Tony, many congratulations on your second Sussex Trophy.
Thank you very much.
How was it?
I made it hard work, didn't I? No, the big cars are going to outgun it from the start. And so you have to just bear that in mind. And I could see after half a dozen laps that Wyn was struggling because his tyres were going off. This car, that doesn't happen. It's a bit lighter, it's got a smaller engine, and the tyres do not go off. So towards the end, I definitely had the advantage, whereas at the start, he had the advantage. And that's why the race looked as it did. But it's very hard work, I can tell you.
Goodwood attracts many stars from the past, but I'm with the star of the future, David Coulthard. Thanks very much for joining us. How's your day going?
Well, I've had a great day so far. Thankfully, just mainly watching. I say thankfully because watching some of these guys are really competitive, so the last thing I need in between Grand Prix is to be out there. But I did a small demonstration there on a 196 Mercedes, which is just incredible, the difference between a modern Grand Prix car and a car like that. There's just no brakes. Yes.
Now, I've heard from lots of other drivers that I've spoken to that are modern drivers like yourself, and they get in the old cars and they say it's just fantastic because the oversteer and understeer is great and the car really slides.
Yeah, I think I had a little bit of oversteer coming out of the chicane. You know, it probably doesn't register as anything in comparison to the professional classic racers that are obviously out there every week. But it was a little bit, you know, I felt a little bit tense in the car because obviously nowadays I'm used to traction control and the speeds are much higher, but you've got other security things there that help you. And this is really, you know, going back to how it was all meant to be, you know, engine, the car, very little downforce, and the difference should be the drivers.
If you were a driver in that era, would you have enjoyed driving those cars?
Yeah, I'm sure, because if that was the era, you know, it's a bit like us living our lives right now, you know, when we're old and wrinkly and our children are marveling at how we could have lived in this time. It's the world, isn't it? Nothing stands still, and I'm very happy to be living my life at this part, you know, this period of the world's development.
Now, what does the Goodwood Revival mean to you? You do come here on occasions when you can fit it into your schedule. Is it something you enjoy doing?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I'm here through choice. I'm not here by any obligation at all, and as such, I try and leave it as relaxed a day and not have commitments to do things, because that's how I live the rest of my life, having commitments at certain times. And it's a totally unique event in the world. There's nowhere like Goodwood anywhere else, and that's why you get people from all over the world coming here. I know at the festival they had 138,000 people over 3 days, which is, I believe, more than Silverstone has for the Grand Prix. So it shows the depth of enthusiasm from people all around the UK.
The Glover Trophy is a mix of 60s Formula One cars, the likes of Cooper, Brabham and Lotus. This car, number 17, will be driven by American legend Bobby Rahal, and this car used to be driven by Bruce McLaren.
16 laps for the Glover Trophy for 1961 to 65 Formula One cars on the front. The Cooper and the Brabham, Bobby Rahal and Frank Sittner, and the flag drops, and Sittner and Rahal go away absolutely side by side down to Madgwick, but it's Rahal who's got the lead. Bobby Rahal in the Cooper takes the lead from Frank Sittner. Rahal the leader, Sittner in second place, and already they're moving away from the rest, with Richard Atwood in John Beasley's Brabham in third place. But this is going to be a battle, I think, between Rahal and Sittner. Already through Fordwater, on down to St Mary's, past the Cornstukes, and now the noses dip and the cars twitch as they go left into the second half of St Mary's. Number 18, the lovely little ATS, Derrington Francis ATS of Andrew Wolfe, in the middle of the field, but these two are absolutely rushing away from the rest. It's Bobby Rahal in the lead, it's Frank Sittner in second place, and Richard Atwood is absolutely pushing Frank Sittner. I thought that it was going to be Sittner versus Sittner versus Rahal. It's actually Sittner versus Atwood, and Atwood just goes straight past. No, he doesn't. He's still behind him. I'm looking at the crash helmets because the two cars look so similar. Richard Atwood has the old Harrovian colours going over the top of his crash helmet, and it's Sittner versus Atwood, and now Atwood coming back at him, and Atwood now this time does go ahead. So Richard Atwood in the number 4 Brabham, John Beasley's car, goes past into second place. Frank Sittner pushed down into third. In the pits in trouble is Dieter Streever-Mullens in his Lotus Climax 24. And what's up with Frank Sittner? Frank Sittner with his arm up, and also problems for Malcolm Ricketts in that beautiful ex-Jim Clark Lotus 32B, the 2.5-litre 4-cylinder Tasman car. Malcolm Ricketts stopping the car. And look how hard Robs Lamplow is having to keep them off, and Sid Hool is right here as well. A wonderful 3-car battle now for 4th place. Lamplow in the green and yellow Lotus, Wolf in the red ATS, Sid Hool in the blue Walker-coloured Brabham, Cooper I should say, on their tail. As we watch Bobby Rahal on his way, 2.3 seconds ahead of Richard Atwood. Actually, it doesn't look like 2.3 seconds, does it? It looks as though Richard Atwood is getting a bit closer, even though the car is smoking quite badly, and a lot of the smoke is in the cockpit, but doesn't seem to be slowing Richard Atwood down at all. The gap was 2.4 seconds last time, but Atwood working his way through the back markers, a little bit of opposite lock as he goes over the out of the chicane, goes over the start-finish line now, and the gap, well, it's actually still 2.7 seconds. It looks rather less than that, so now Richard Atwood's got a bit of smoke in the cockpit. He may be easing off a bit. There's a spin for David Clark in his 1961 P57 BRM, who has come to a halt, and it's a rather nasty position on the outside of the left-hand portion of St Mary's, and the marshals want to go to his aid, but they're quite correctly being a little bit cautious, because the outside of St Mary's is not somewhere where you want to be. David Clark actually gets out of the car and tries to push it to a safer position. Now the marshals are there to help him. Sid Hool using quite a lot of the grass in his efforts to get past Andrew Wolfe. It didn't work. And a great battle going on for 4th place, while Bobby Rahal and Richard Atwood and indeed Martin Wolford are clearly out in front. The queue behind Robs Lamplow is getting very exciting indeed. It's Lamplow, Hool, Wolf, and a spin now for Peter Wunsch in his 2-litre P261 BRM. That circuit is very oily. He's kept his engine running and is able to rejoin as we look at Frank Sittner, rather thirsty and rather fed up. His race is over. Robs Lamplow's car actually seeming to bottom over the bumps, and Robs Lamplow is slowing, and certainly Sid Hool is finding it no problem at all to go by him. Sid Hool goes through up into 4th place, and I think Robs Lamplow just let him go, and I suspect that the ATS is going to make up a place any minute as well. Irving Laidlaw's BRM has fallen way back and isn't yet able to capitalise on what seems to be Robs Lamplow's problems. Well, Robs Lamplow is still driving hard, but he clearly lost momentum on the 11th straight. And there's our new fourth place man, Sid Hoole, the man who's been connected with Coopers for a very long time indeed. And Rob's Lamplow still there in fifth place, still ahead of the red ATS, but certainly had a slow lap that time round. Here's a man who's having every lap quick. It's Bobby Rahal, who's on his own at the front of this race, 7.7 seconds lead in that beautiful little McLaren-built Cooper. It is a Cooper, but it was built for the Tasman Series by Bruce McLaren. They called it a Cooper and made it look like a Cooper so they didn't upset not so much John Cooper, who wouldn't have been upset, but it was Charlie Cooper, his old man, who wouldn't have been too happy about it. Irvin Laidlaw has suddenly got his second wind. Having fallen back, Irvin Laidlaw is right behind the ATS and is challenging. So we've got Lamplow, Wolf and Laidlaw. There is definitely smoke coming from those big stack pipes of Irvin Laidlaw's car, but he slowed for a while and then obviously decided to keep going. And as the ATS locks up a brake, he goes through on the inside, passes Rob's Lamplow. Rob's Lamplow actually on the grass now, and Rob's Lamplow spins. Fortunately does so all on his own. Irvin Laidlaw gets through smoothly. Has he kept the engine running? Is he able to keep going? No, I think he's stalled it. I think he stalled it. No, he's got it going. Rob's Lamplow is able to restart, having spun, and fortunately he kept it on the tarmac. Everybody else missed him, and he's able to race on. So Bobby Rahal has now lapped everybody except second man Atwood, third man Hoole, and what's happened here? Off. No, that is number 20, which is Howard Cherry in the Mark IV Lola, Duncan Dakins Lola. He is off, and so is it is Peter Wunsch having yet another spin, and this time they're both stationary. So Bobby Rahal tiptoes past the stranded BRM into Woodcote, out of Woodcote. The nose of the car dips as he goes into the chicane. He's safely through the chicane. The checkered flag is waiting. The Glover Trophy, for the first time, I think, is won by a Cooper. Well, no, not the first time, but certainly the first time in the revival. Bobby Rahal in the McLaren-built Cooper Type 79 2.5-litre Tasman car wins the Glover Trophy for 2002. So Atwood bringing the John Beasley 1963 Brabham BT4 out of the chicane to take second place.
Well, it's, you know, for me, I was first a fan 30-some years ago with my father. And so these cars I saw when I was a little boy, so it's great to be able to drive them today and to get a sense of what it was like. And, you know, for me, it's a little bit like Back to the Future.
One of the most famous races in Goodwood's heyday was the 9 Hours, which brought Le Mans-style night racing to Britain. Stirling Moss did all 3 of them, and for the revival he drove one of his old C-Type Jaguars in the Freddie March Memorial Trophy, which recreated all the early 1950s atmosphere of the 9 Hours by running into Twilight. The racing was every bit as hard this weekend as it was back then, with Le Mans-style sports racers fighting it out. The 9 Hours was always a battle between Jaguar and Aston Martin, and the Freddie March Memorial was just the same. Alan de Cadenet's Maserati there was soon in trouble. But the race itself developed into a fight between the Aston DB3S of Frank Sittner and the HWM Jaguar of Michael Steele, the two of them running nose to tail past the pits. Refueling took place in the paddock to avoid a repeat of the disastrous pits fire of 1952, with every car making a mandatory 5-minute stop and driver change. Flavien Marseille's little Tajiro Bristol, which ran in the original 9 Hours twice, showed its age by breaking its rear suspension. As the headlights came on in the gathering gloom, the Frank Sittner DB3S, driven now by Willie Green, cantered home to a historically appropriate win from the Julian Bronson Michael Steele HWM. And the Stirling Moss Jaguar scored a fine 5th place.
Welcome back. Well, many years ago, Goodwood used to be a former airfield. Now, this statue alongside me is of Douglas Bader, who flew his last mission from here. Well, as we know, here at Goodwood, there's plenty of activity going on in the circuit, but even more in the sky. Well, the next race is all about grunts. These 60s GT cars are very powerful indeed, and this man, Jackie Oliver, will be racing one today. Jackie, tell us about the TT.
Well, it's a two-driver race, and I'm sharing with John Marston Taylor in the car behind me, which is a 1963 Briggs Cunningham. And for those who don't know, Briggs Cunningham was a very famous driver and entrant from North America, and it finished fourth in Le Mans with an American driver in the early 60s, so it's got some pedigree. And this is what this race is all about. It's not just the classic cars all racing together, but their history, who raced them and where they raced, which makes it a wonderful event to attend.
I'm driving an AC Cobra from the 64 area, and with Henry Pescarolo, so it's a all-frog lineup with an American touch. So it's a bit of a handful, drivers will tell you. The back end tends to come in the front very often.
The car I drive this year, the E-Type Jaguar, is the same car as I drove last year with the same co-driver, Gregor Fiskin, and last year we won the race, so yeah, we are very much looking forward to it.
I'm driving in the TT race with Bobby Rahal, an enormously talented American driver, and he is just sensational in the car. We've got this really very small car, engine about a quarter the size of the big cars, and Bobby's very nearly as quick as the big boys, so it's fantastic.
A wonderful field for the Royal Automobile Club TT celebration at Goodwood this year, with a mix of Cobras and E-Types at the front. It's Patrick Tambay in the French Cobra on the pole position on the inside of the front row. Next to him, Frank Sittner's E-Type, and Emanuele Pirro in the E-Type. He will be sharing with Gregor Fiskin. A green flag at the back says everybody is in position. 5 seconds to go. Wait for the Union Jack. The flag is down. A great start from Tambay. Not a good start from Pirro. It was Patrick Tambay who got the jump on Frank Sittner. Frank Sittner is in second place. It's Cobra, E-Type at the front as they all go pouring round Madgwick corner, and then away from Madgwick along that slight flat-out kink at Ford Water, which will lead them up to St Mary's, and moving up extremely well is the Cobra of the Corvette, I should say, of Jason Plato. Look for the pale blue Corvette of Jason Plato. There it is, coming up into fourth place, so an excellent start from Plato from the middle of the third row. Jason Plato up to fourth, still Cobra and two E-Types at the front. The Corvette is fourth, then another Cobra and another E-Type, which is Wyn Percy's car, coming up well, but a wonderful start from Patrick Tambay from pole position, and it's Frank Sittner with Emanuele Pirro recovering from his slightly tardy start in the light grey E-Type, who is really pushing Frank Sittner very hard indeed as they go into Lavant Corner for the first time. This is a 1 hour race, two drivers, they're all going to have to make pit stops, but at the moment as they come out of Woodcote and down now into the chicane already, the leaders are absolutely tied together. They come past us in a blast of sound, and it is indeed Patrick Tambay leading by just a second from Frank Sittner. Emanuele Pirro is in third place. Then a gap before a great battle for fourth. It is still Jason Plato, but not for long, I suspect, because he's got Barry Williams on his tail. David Piper has had a delay in the Ferrari GTO 64, and indeed two cars have got past Jason Plato now. One of them was, I'm sure, Barry Williams. We've got a Ferrari on fire. That's the 250 GT short wheelbase which comes to a halt. It must be the car that Alan de Cadenet is driving. It is indeed de Cadenet, who says to the marshals, my car's on fire, I'm going to stand back, would you like to put it out, please? So Alan de Cadenet walking briskly around the 250 GT, which he was due to share with Derek Bell, but I suspect his race is run. So Patrick Tambay with, well, less than 4/5 of a second. But Frank Sittner, if he was giving him a bit of challenge, now has to worry more about the brilliant Italian Emanuele Pirro, who is flinging the light grey John Coombs E-Type around in Sittner's mirrors, and Frank Sittner having to be very wide awake. We've got Barry Williams in the pits in the silver ex-Nick Granville-Smith Cobra. Barry Williams in the pits, so his Cobra not at all happy. Well, it looks as though they put the fire out on the Alan de Cadenet Ferrari, and Alan de Cadenet is going to drive it back to the pits. Look at Emanuele Pirro having another go as they come up to St Mary's. Has a look down the inside for the left-hand bit. But Frank Sittner's so experienced at Goodwood. He knows his way around Goodwood in his sleep. But once again, see how driving defensively, in fact not defensively enough, because Pirro has got to look through on the inside as they go into Lavant, but as he slides wide, so Sittner goes by again. A classic move. Pirro was able to get down the inside of the first apex of Lavant, then of course had to slide wide, and that allowed Sittner to go back inside him and take second place back again. We've got two more E-types side by side as Jackie Oliver is battling with Nick Whale. Jackie Oliver in the Cunningham coloured car, Nick Whale in the ex-Dick Prothero hard top coupe, and Jackie Oliver wins that little battle. Now we're on lap 8, and they've suddenly got all over Patrick Tambay. Patrick Tambay has lost the lead. I don't know if there was a back marker involved, but he's waving out of the window of the car, and Frank Sittner got by, and Emanuele Pirro nearly went by as well, but just didn't manage to do so, and there was a hand signal from Patrick Tambay. I don't think he was particularly happy about something. It may be that there was a back marker who got in their way. They're already starting to lap the slower cars, but as they come over the start-finish line to complete their 8th lap, Frank Sittner is the new leader, but here comes the Cobra alongside. The Cobra's going to get the lead back. Absolute horsepower down to Madgwick. Absolute late braking. Patrick Tambay on the outside. Frank Sittner keeps the door shut. And Tambay has a big sideways moment, and as he tries to cope with it, so Frank Sittner eases away from him. Emanuele Pirro has a grandstand view of the whole thing in 3rd place. Sittner using absolutely all the road and a little bit of the grass coming out of Fawnwater. That's a very fast corner. They're doing about 140 miles an hour there as they turn right into the first part of St Mary's. They've got another car to lap. That's one of the slower Ferraris, but Patrick Tambay demoted to 2nd place with a moment somewhere which I suspect involved a back marker. Ludovic Lindsay is on the tail of Jason Plato. Plato in the pale green Corvette, and Ludovic Lindsay in the ex-Prothero lightweight E-Type with that famous registration number cut 7. And Emanuele Pirro now has got ahead of Patrick Tambay. So Pirro has got by Tambay as well. We've now got E-Type first, E-Type second, Cobra pushed down to 3rd. And Patrick Tambay, who led this race so brilliantly from the start, now finds himself, as they go through the back markers and the race starts to get really hot, demoted to 3rd. The David Piper Duncan Dayton car comes in, the lovely 1964 version of the Ferrari GTO. David Piper is out, Duncan Dayton, the American, is in, so that's a driver change, one of the first driver changes we've had. And look at Emanuele Pirro looking for a lead change. And Frank Sittner is so astute, you'd think he must have eyes in the back of his crash helmet, because whichever way Pirro goes, but now Pirro has got the inside, and Pirro is briefly ahead. Is he going to be able to make it stick? He is. Sittner just slid wide coming out of Woodcote. Pirro was there to go down the inside. Emanuele Pirro is now our new leader. And now here comes the Cobra alongside Frank Sittner. Patrick Tombe goes up to second place, or does he? He does. Sittner is on the inside, but he got on the brakes just a little bit later. And so now the order has changed completely again. And Emanuele Pirro, now he's gone into the lead, particularly because Frank Sittner is now stuck behind the Cobra. Pirro is now going to extend this lead. Great battle going on for 10th place between John Young in the number 15 Corvette Stingray, that's the red and white car, and right on his tail he has got the Nick Whale E-Type, that is, isn't it? Yes, the first Cut 7. Dick Prothero's first E-Type. Before the days of the lightweight E-Type, Dick Prothero had the Cut 7 registration number on that car. But look how close Emanuele... In fact, we've got a new leader. We have got a new leader because somewhere out of our sight, Patrick Tombe found a way past Emanuele Pirro. Perhaps it was more astute use of the traffic, and the Cobra is back in the lead. This is an absolutely wonderful 1960s motor race. And Frank Sittner's off the road. There you see the damage on his front left-hand wing, where he elbowed his way into the lead, but he is off. He's parking. He's parking. He's got the door open. What a shame. Frank Sittner, who led this race, who fought so hard, is parking the number 28 Jaguar E-Type. And in comes the leader, Patrick Tombe, coming into the pits to hand over to Henri Pescarolo. So Emanuele Pirro goes by into the lead. This is a very important pit stop. Pescarolo is ready. Tombe out of the car, almost falls out of the car. Pescarolo, who's a tall chap, squeezes himself in. He's got to get his seatbelts on. They're just checking, walking around the car while they do so, just to make sure nothing's fallen off. In fact, they've taken the side screen away because they couldn't shut the door with the side screen in position. They take that away, make the car a little bit slower in a straight line. And that too, they're very difficult to get going, these hot V8 engines. That too seemed to falter, but then the marshal says the road is clear, and out comes the Patrick Tombe car with the green helmet of Henri Pescarolo at the wheel now, and we're just working out where he will be in the order. We think he's third. We think he's only dropped to third place. So Emanuele Pirro in the lead, Win Percy in the E-Type in second place. Well, now this is very interesting, Doug. In fact, this is getting rather like modern Formula One, because they've got a pit stop to make. There's 18 minutes left to go. Pirro is in the lead by 44 seconds. We know that the pit stop lasts about 35 or a bit, perhaps a bit longer for going in and coming out. This is going to be a very close run thing, isn't it?
This is going to be an athletic Olympic event, I think, for swapping drivers. Actually, it should be, I suspect it will be rather easier to get into the E-Type than it was to get into the Cobra. And Gregor Fiskin, who's taking over this car, is a pretty slim, athletic young man. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, I'm sure that's right. There is very little room in the Cobra. Well, in comes Emanuele Pirro. He's done all but 18 minutes of this race. And now he has to come in to hand over to Gregor Fiskin. Where is Gregor? Is he ready? Out gets Emanuele Pirro. There is the Scottish tartan around the crash helmet, which says it's Gregor Fiskin getting in. And as Doug says, this pit stop is absolutely crucial. It's Emanuele Pirro who is helping him to do up the seatbelts, and he's away. It's a very, very quick stop. Is he going to be able to come out in the lead? He's being held on the yellow flag. Now he can go. The marshal has to make him wait until the road is clear.
And the Cobra's just coming through the chicane right now.
He's kept the lead. Thank you, Doug. He has kept the lead. So Gregor Fiskin leads the Royal Automobile Club Tourist Trophy by, well, it's going to be about 11 seconds, I think. Oh, and another spin for Robin Longdon, who's pointing in the wrong direction. Just manages to get the car over to the other side of the road before he's smitten by somebody coming the other way. But they've got Sterling Moss to lap in the number 7 Cobra ahead of them as they come through Lavant Corner. They're now going to catch Sterling Moss on the long straight, or maybe because they're all pretty potent machine, Sterling will be able to stay ahead. No, he doesn't. Sterling keeps out of the way. Very good gentlemanly behaviour by Sterling. He sees the lead battle come up behind him. And now is it going to be now that Henri Pescarolo does it, coming down into Woodcote? They're side by side. Pescarolo has the inside line. On the brakes they go, and Pescarolo is through. But Gregor Fiskin goes across the centre, goes over the apex, almost managed to get back at him. Holds it all together somehow, and Henri Pescarolo gets back ahead. And Henri Pescarolo is being kept honest by the Scotsman. The car, so brilliantly driven in the early stages by Emanuele Pirro, has also been magnificently driven by Gregor Fiskin. And Patrick Tambay, having started in this car, Henri Pescarolo took it over just fractionally after half distance, and he's done, as has his co-driver, a simply magnificent job. And he's down to Woodcote Corner now, into the chicane for the last time. The checkered flag is waiting. Henri Pescarolo wins the Royal Automobile Club Tourist Trophy celebration, and here comes Gregor Fiskin, an honourable second. Victory laurels then from the Countess of March for Henri Pescarolo and Patrick Tambay, and Emanuele Pirro coming into the picture too with a fighting second place.
I'm here with James Allen. Now, James, we normally know you as a commentator, so today I find you sitting on a bike. What are you doing here at Goodwood?
Well, I've always loved riding bikes now. I've ridden them since I was a little kid. I never really did any racing, and I always wanted to. So I raced here a couple of years ago for the first time on these wonderful old Grand Prix Nortons from the early 60s, and I loved it. Last year I couldn't come because it clashed with the Italian Grand Prix, but this year I'm back with no clash, and I've got a much faster bike. I'm teammate to Barry Sheene and Wayne Gardner. I'm between the two former world champions and feeling rather ordinary, to be honest with you. They're much quicker than I am.
Now, I understand the circuit here at Goodwood is a very fast circuit. Is that daunting at all, or are you really up for that challenge?
Yeah, when you come across the start-finish line, there's a right-hander, and on a bike you certainly have to brake and perhaps go down one gear. Well, you do if you're me. And then you turn into the corner, and there's an ideal line into the corner. And if you don't get that line right, if you go a bit far to the left, you find yourself heading straight at an earth bank at about 100 miles an hour, and you think, oh, lean it over. So you sort of try and hang yourself off it as much as possible. You do have to be careful, but we're not here to sort of win world championships like these two boys have done. We're just here to have fun and hopefully put on a good show for the crowd.
So the motorcycles on the track, ready for battle to commence. And I know that we'll all be rooting and cheering for Barry Sheene, but out there, everybody will want to win. The green flag is waved from the back of the grid, and the flag drops, and they're away. This is a brilliant start. The thunder rises to the skies over Goodwood, and we watch with a great deal of interest as they boil into the first corner, and it's Mick Hemmings with Duncan Fitchett flashing right by him. Fitchett absolutely nails it as they go into that long sweeping corner. It's the black and white helmet of 8 stone 5 Duncan Fitchett. A real compact rocket, this man, and he's got the boys going after him now. Hemmings is going in there, and also working away is Charles Mortimer on the Ian Telfer ex-Malcolm Uphill Manx Norton. So they are really sweeping at it very hard as they come in there. Footrest scraping as they come round, 1 or 2 knees stuck out, but they're working away there. Hemmings working away to pin Fitchett back. Barry Sheene is down in about 5th place and really working at it as they come through and take the right-hander, sweeping over the bumps. You can see the bike shake and ripple. Barry Sheene has certainly changed the rear suspension on that. It's not shaking as much as it was yesterday, but Fitchett is on full lean. Can you believe that this man can lean this bike over and still stay on without it sliding away from underneath him? Everybody's head down in the office. Charles Mortimer's got Barry Sheene right on his tail, and they come sweeping again. The bikes love the sweepers here at Goodwood, and the sweepers they are. And at the back we can see Bill Swallow, and Bill Swallow I think playing a waiting game as they come through Woodcote. It's line astern battle formation, and they come into the chicane with Fitchett just a whisker out in front, and they go into there and swing it through. You can't believe that the cars have left rubber and they can still hang up. 17 in there and going at it. Tim Jackson with the white socks turned down in second place. So Fitchett, Jackson, Charles Mortimer, Barry Sheen in fourth spot, and Barry is 0.5, half a second down on the leader. Bill Swallow coming up hard behind Sheen, and Mick Hemmings dropping away on his standard engine. Gordon Russell working away with a Manx. This enormous variety, and the lovely, lovely noise of George Beals Bonelli way, way down behind the leaders, but working away very hard. Into the chicane they come, bobbing through a back marker, out to the edge, lets the bike drift away, so they're really on the limit now as the bike starts to lift. Bill Swallow is in there going hard. Fitchett in third place, so Jackson, Swallow, Fitchett and Barry Sheen and Gardner. And that is 6 laps completed, with the Linto of Pentiello in 6th place, Mick Hemmings 7th. But now it's eyes on the battle for these front places here at Goodwood as they work at it, and they are all across the track. You could throw a blanket and cover the lot of them, and they are going for it with Wayne Gardner. Must wonder what he has to do in the closing stages of this race to go again under the checkered flag in first place. Sweeping through the long right-hander, picking the bike up and thrashing it into the left hand, going down 1 in the gearbox and then up 2 very rapidly. You can see hand, foot and eye working away. Tim Jackson is there. Swallow's giving him a bad time. Sheen is up there. Sheen is at his shoulder, and Sheen drifts it right the way out there. And Barry Sheen now leads the race. Barry Sheen in front. That is great news. So Barry Sheen working away there. Here they come with Fitchett still working away. Fitchett now back behind the pack. Jackson and Sheen are working away at each other, but Wayne Gardner coming up, but he's got Bill Swallow at his elbow, and those two too are matching each other, skill for skill, gear change for gear change, and lean for lean. Sheen bobs it right the way round. The back marker frightens him to almost death, I should think, as he goes right the way through. That was Richard Thurkle being well and truly lapped by the star champion. Over the line they go, and they are place swapping again as they go down into Madgwick. Sheen out in front. The man with all our good wishes on his shoulders. Wayne Gardner hassling Colin Seeley, who's also being lapped. These two brilliant world champions out in front, shoulder to shoulder, knee to knee, flicking it through the corners. Sheen lets it drift nicely back up in front. Gardner tangles with him and battles with him. They are now opening the taps, and the sheer, utter world championship skill of these two riders is making this Goodwood track really come alive. Gardner back in front of Sheen. This is a battle of the century. They are having a marvellous time out there, thoroughly respecting each other. They've raced against each other in the past, but they haven't raced against each other. We're working it out for nearly 14 years. So through they come, and now with 7 laps completed, coming through, the last lap flag is out, coming through to the checkered flag. Sheen or Gardner, who's it going to be? It's Barry Sheen in front. Sheen coming into the chicane first. Gardner going for it. Gardner really winding it up. Sheen looks over his left shoulder, looks straight into Gardner's eyes, and they come whistling up, and the checkered flag falls, and the winner is Barry Sheen. Absolutely wonderful.
Barry, many congratulations.
Yeah, I'm really pleased. It's great fun, you know, I love coming here. I really enjoy racing here. It's great to have Wayne here because we mates and that, and had a good laugh, and you know, we ride close together and we have good fun. It doesn't matter if he wins or I win, it's good, you know, and it's great for motorbikes.
Wayne, you got the win yesterday, but Barry's taking it today.
Yeah, Barry outsmarted me a bit today, and he carried a bit too much pace into that last corner, so... But look, you know, it's really nice to race Barry. You know, I began my career here in the UK, racing Barry back in '81, and we had some good memories then, and it's nice to come back in 2002 and race him again. And, you know, I beat him sometimes then, and he beat me, and it's still happening now. So it's nice to come back on bikes and race old mates, you know.
Well, 40 years ago, Easter Monday in 1962, Graham Hill won the Glover Trophy here at Goodwood in that car, and it's his son Damon Hill, also of course a world champion, who's driving it today in this tribute to the memory of Graham Hill. The sheer variety of the cars on the circuit now indicate what life was like for a professional racing driver in the 1950s and 1960s. Michael Schumacher races one type of car in a year and will do just 17 races. A driver like Graham Hill would drive in Formula 1, in Formula 2, in touring cars, in sports cars and GTs. He might also do Indianapolis and Le Mans. And would probably do something like 40 or 50 races a year. Damon Hill, the only world champion son of a world champion father. So that was another record that Graham Hill broke, albeit posthumously, when Damon Hill won the World Championship, clinched it in Suzuka in Japan in 1996. Little yellow Keith. Graham prepared his Keith in a barn in Kent, and that big McLaren, because there was a John Coombs McLaren that Graham Hill drove on occasion. C-type Jaguar, of course, a Lotus 11. He had a yellow Lotus 11, that's the Lotus 15, the little Lotus 12 single-seater, and the Lotus 16. Then the Sunbeam Rapey, which he rallied, the Speedwell Austin A35. He even drove a Type 61 Maserati, and by one was one of the John Coombs Mark II Jaguars that he drove. The Porsche, BRM, Lotus 24, the big green Aston Martin, the McLaren, the lightweight E-Type, and then the little single-seater Cooper and those 2 or even 3 Ferraris, typical of the cars that Graham Hill raced.
The Goodwood Revival attracts a whole host of people from different backgrounds and different generations.
I think if you come here as a spectator, you really feel as though you're part of the action. You get very close to the cars, you get very close to the drivers, and the fact that there's a kind of a bonding goes on between those who've made the effort to dress in period garb, even though the prospect of it, I think for a lot of people, the idea of having to get dressed up, especially in order to get to a motor race, is a slightly exhausting idea. But I think, I mean, like a fancy dress party, if you make the effort, then, you know, it pays dividends and you feel better for it and you feel as though you've joined in.
This, to me, is the best motorsport event in the world, and I'm only exaggerating slightly when I say I would give up all the Grand Prix for the Festival of Speed and the Revival meeting. They are that good.
Now, it's been around 40 years since your career ended, and it sadly ended here at Goodwood. Does that hold any bad memories for you, or do you not think about that now?
No, the bad thing about it, of course, I had to work for a living after that. I mean, I couldn't carry on playing. So yes, that was the bad news, of course, but no, it has not in any way made me feel badly about the circuit. No, I really, all the good things are just so good, and that was an accident that I reckon should never have happened, but there it did.
I can't tell you how much I enjoy it. It just gives me a tremendous thrill. And I do wallow in nostalgia as well, because there's some cars here that I used to work on, and a few that I was involved with. Not just that, lots of my heroes are here. I mean, I'm getting changed in that little tent at the back, and there's Sir Sterling Moss in his undies going, "Morning, Tone," and you're thinking, it's another of my heroes, or Derek Bell, they're all here.
Is the Whitsun Trophy. These 60 sports cars will be taking to the grid once again. The GT40, incidentally, used to use this circuit here as a test track, but will they dominate this weekend? You're looking forward to it?
Yeah, it's going to be good fun. I haven't done anything like this before, so a lot different to anything else I've done. So just going to enjoy it.
Robert, congratulations on being on the front row. What's your plan for this race?
Well, I'm going to wait until the flag drops, and I'm going to go just as hard as I bloody well can, and if I need to, I'm going to pass a lot of people.
18 laps, the Whitsun Trophy. Willie Green on pole in the yellow GT40, but Willie Green makes a dreadful start, and Robert Brooks is away clear. Willie Green can barely get underway. The car faltered, everybody driving round him. A terrible start for Willie Green, who is left all the way at the back. Willie Green can barely get underway from pole position, and it's Robert Brooks who has the lead. It's Darren Manning in second place. So Darren Manning, a complete newcomer to historic racing, alongside Robert Brooks at Fordwater. Darren Manning making it stick, and they're coming up now to the right-hander of St Mary's. Darren Manning has the lead, but Robert Brooks in the little pale green Lotus 19 is there in third place. It's Duncan Dayton in the green David Piper Ferrari, who's come up well from the second row of the grid. And Simon Hadfield in the little maroon Lotus 23 is absolutely flying. He's got something less than half the horsepower of the cars he's fighting with, but Simon Hadfield, a very rapid man indeed, particularly around this difficult Goodwood circuit. Darren Manning in the lead in his first ever race in a GT40, and Robert Brooks trying to think what to do about this. The little Lotus is quicker through the corners, but not as fast down the straight as is Darren Manning's GT40. Peter Teichmann's car, a very historic early Ford GT40. And Darren Manning leads down to complete his first lap. Manning leads. Robert Brooks then, still in second place. Still Duncan Dayton and Peter Hardman third and fourth in their 250 LM Ferraris. But it's Duncan Dayton who's pushing very hard on Robert Brooks. Duncan Dayton lines up on the inside as they come out of Fordwater and down to St Mary's. And Dayton is absolutely nosing alongside on the inside. Now they've got a right-hand corner that comes after this, but Dayton is indeed there. Nice move on the inside of the right-hander path, but Robert Brooks is fighting back. And as they go down now to Lavant Corner, Robert Brooks has got ahead again. It's a fascinating battle, Sterling, isn't it? Because you've got a big, heavy, powerful car in the Ferrari and a little nimble car in the Lotus 19.
Yeah, I think the Ferrari's a lot quicker than one realises through the corners, you know. It's if you watch him, he's very close and he doesn't seem to lose that much as he goes round the bends.
You won races, of course, in the Lotus 19, race for British Racing Partnership, those pale green colours. I remember a race when you had, when the Lotus 19 was very new in Scandinavia.
Yes, and the only problem with the Lotus is I was always worried whether I was going to keep all the wheels on. And inclined to lose a wheel now and again.
Well, a lot of smoke coming out of the back of the number 25 McLaren. That's Richard Dodkin's car. And Robert Brooks is fighting back. But Duncan Dayton holds him off. And when they get up to St Mary's, and then it's the point between St Mary's and Lavant that Robert Brooks is able to close up. Great GT40 battles going on all the way down the field. Richard Atwood and Ray Belm in cars 12 and 20 fighting away. But that's the battle between number 30, which is Ray Belm. Oh, and a spin for Duncan Dayton. Duncan Dayton is off.
Simon, one thing you want to remember, the guy following behind is actually at quite a disadvantage, because when you're going into a corner, you want to see the road ahead, and the man in front of you, of course, because he's slightly sideways, is inclined to block your view, and it's a bit off-putting.
Well, Simon Hadfield trying to go round the outside. Oh, wow. And that is Barazzi's Ferrari, which I think has hit the bank extremely hard. There's a lot of oil and water on the track coming from leaking reservoirs. Juan Barazzi unhurt. He walks rather stiffly away, but we see a replay, and it was at the end of Fordwater going into St Mary's. A very big accident in that almost priceless Ferrari 250 LM. He is unhurt. The car is badly damaged and it's still on the track, and I would think we're going to have a red flag. What a shame. The race is being red flagged after only 6 laps completed. There is Juan Barazzi with a smile on his face, so he's obviously all right, but he hit the bank extremely hard. In fact, Sterling, that's not far from the bank that you hit.
It is the bank that I hit. I don't know exactly how far the point of impact was, but that is exactly where it was.
Darren, unfortunately that race was red flagged. You had quite an advantage on the other one.
Yeah, it was quite good really, a bit of a battle on the opening lap, and then he just seemed to drop away about 5 seconds or so over the next few. Was able to pull in some quick laps when the tyres were cold, then he'd kind of go away, and I think that somebody had laid a little bit of oil down where the car went off, so I was just taking it a little bit steady, but I have to do it all again now.
And a green flag at the back says everybody is clear. It's Peter Hardman's Ferrari on the outside of the front row. The flag falls, and the front row moves away almost as one as they go down to Madgwick. It's Darren Manning once more who has the lead. It's Robert Brooks in second place, and up to third comes Simon Hadfield in the little Lotus 22, and cheekily he tries to go inside Robert Brooks at the second exit of Madgwick, but Robert Brooks isn't having any of that. Darren Manning the leader, Robert Brooks in second place. Now Peter Hardman comes up to third in the 250LM Ferrari. I think the little Lotus is still there in fourth place, but Robert Brooks having lost touch with Darren Manning. Look at that Lotus 22, it's got back up to third place again, ahead of 23, I should say. Lotus 23, it's number 22, just to confuse us all. But the Lotus 23 has got ahead, and Robert Brooks must have a problem. Robert Brooks has slipped way back. He had a big twitch. Now Robert will be very unhappy with that, and Simon Hadfield has got an unbelievable second place. Darren Manning in the lead. The Lotus 23 of Simon Hadfield in second place. Third, it's going to be Peter Hardman, I think. And Robert Brooks is elbowing one side, then the other of a McLaren. In fact, there was contact there. That was Richard Dodkin's McLaren, which wasn't going to have any nonsense from Robert Brooks. There was contact between those two cars, but Robert Brooks kept it pointing the right way. And so as they come through to complete the first of now 10 laps, Richard Dodkin's really moving up in the husky McLaren, trying to go round the outside of Peter Hardman. Can he do it? No, he doesn't quite do it, but they're sliding as they come out of Madgwick, and poor old Robert Brooks got it all wrong on that first lap, and he's now well down in the traffic. As Darren Manning goes into Madgwick, the little maroon Lotus 23 in second place, Richard Dodkins catching it in third place, and Ray Belm has got past Robert Brooks. So Belm moves up into fifth, Brooks down to sixth. I don't think Robert Brooks is going to be at all happy with this race, Stern. No, I don't think he is, but I think the staggering thing to me is the little Lotus 23. He's holding on to that second position, even though he's got these other great big cars threatening him. He must be driving it extremely hard and very, very well.
They couldn't be closer. We're now on the 7th of 10 laps. Oh, and that was a big moment as Ray Bell put his brakes on. Duncan Dayton was right there, almost hit the back of the GT40, managed to go alongside it, but had to lock up his brakes as well. Robert Brooks very close behind in the pale green Lotus. And now Ray Belm is on the inside. Duncan Dayton goes round the outside. A very nice move by the American. Duncan Dayton takes that place finally from Ray Belm, and through goes Robert Brooks as well. And still it's Hardman, Brooks and Belm. Duncan Dayton has moved away, but Hardman fourth, Brooks fifth and Belm sixth. Darren Manning with a 5.8 second lead over the extraordinary Simon Hadfield Lotus 23, and Duncan Dayton a further 3 seconds or so down. Now, come on, Robert, what can you do about it now? You can't get on the inside because Peter Hardman's kept the door shut. And again keeps the door shut at St Mary's. Oh, what a big moment there for Robert Brooks, who got the car very crossed up. You are very lucky to get a Lotus 19, a much more precise car, back from that sort of slide, Sterling, I think.
Yeah, I must say he's doing a pretty good job there, because that is not the sort of car to mess around with. It's a very delicate and finite car, exceptionally quick if you are good enough to drive it that way.
Well, that moment for Robert Brooks means he's lost contact with Duncan Dayton at the moment. It'll be interesting to see how much how long it takes him to close up on him through the corners once more. We're now just coming to the start of the final lap. In fact, Darren Manning crosses the start-finish line to start his 10th and final lap in Peter Teichmann's lovely early Ford GT40. There's Simon Hadfield in second place. Duncan Dayton is catching Simon Hadfield. Duncan Dayton has just set the fastest lap of the race, 1:25.7. So Duncan Dayton is flying. Peter Hardman is going sideways now, out of Madgwick and through Fordwater. Duncan Dayton, the fastest man on the circuit at the moment, but I don't think he's going to be able to catch Simon Hadfield in second place. He's certainly not going to be able to catch this man, the number 17 GT40 of Darren Manning. Darren Manning, a tremendously talented young driver, Formula 1 test driver for BAR, successful Formula 3000 driver, and now having a go at historic, but now this must be Robert Brooks' best chance, and Robert Brooks does it, leaves his braking tremendously late, has a bit of a sideways moment at Lavant, but keeps the door shut on Peter Hardman. Now, will he have enough momentum out of Lavant to stay ahead of Peter Hardman down the Lavant straight? We watch Darren Manning. There is Robert Brooks, and he's lost that place, and so has he lost the next place to Ray Belm. Well, we've got the leader coming through to finish. So, oh, and a twitch as he comes out of the chicane, but Darren Manning wins the race. Simon Hadfield is a delighted second, and behind them, what's happening for third? We've got a spin. Duncan Dayton has spun. Duncan Dayton spins coming out of the chicane the very last time, and so it is Peter Hardman who gets third place. Robert Brooks gets fourth place. Ray Belm is fifth. Alan Minshaw is sixth, and Duncan Dayton threw away. He was absolutely flying. He set the fastest lap of the race, and then in the final corner, he spun it away coming out of the chicane. So Darren Manning, the winner with the GT40. Simon Hadfield in that little maroon Lotus 23, a brilliant second. Peter Hardman, after everybody else's excitement, inherits third place in his Ferrari 250 LM when Duncan Dayton spins it all away. Robert Brooks, a hard-working fourth place in the little Lotus 19. Ray Belm fifth, and Alan Minshaw in his GT40 sixth. Have you ever spun on the final corner of a race, Sterling?
No, I don't think I have, actually. It must be so disappointing. But at least he wasn't in the lead. But it's been a great race again, another great race. And that Lotus, I mean, that 23 is only 1,500, 1,600 cc's, isn't it?
Quite remarkable.
Did a remarkable job, remarkable.
Well, it's been another great race. It's been a fantastic day's racing, a fantastic weekend's racing here at Goodwood. Congratulations to the Earl of March and all his team, who once again have put on a simply superb Goodwood Revival.
Darren, many congratulations. I bet you were glad you got a very good start on that restart.
Yeah, it was good. You know, it's the first time I've done a flag start before in my life, even from karting. So it was good that I had that practice start to begin with, because you just don't know when to go or whatever. But this car is fantastic. It's just so beautiful to drive. Even though it's heavy, it's just enjoyable. It gets a bit hot in there, mind, but yeah, it's good.
Well, that's it from Goodwood for another year. We hope you've enjoyed all those golden memories. Here's a chance again to see the best bits from the weekend. Bye-bye.